And joining me now with more is Holly Wade, Executive Director at NFIB Research Center. Holly, it's great to have you on the show this morning. And what are your takeaways from February's report?
So in February, small business optimism did ease a bit. This is the second month in a row that optimism on the small business sector has declined, but we're still far above where we were before the election, and also above still where the 51-year average has been at 98. So right now we're at 100.7, and that's still a really good space for small businesses. The economy seems to be moving along for them. They still have a lot of open positions available, especially in those sectors, including construction and now most recently retail. But uncertainty has spiked since the election. And so there still is a bit of concern about where things are going forward and what that means for them in operating their business.
Interesting. I'm curious, Holly, to get a sense of the survey period, because as I mentioned earlier, we saw the S&P 500 hit a record high as recently as February 19th, though under the surface it did seem, and based on your survey, that consumers and business owners were starting to see perhaps some cracks in the system.
Well, our survey was conducted throughout the month of February, and for the most part, we did introduce a new question related to just assessing the health of their own business. And about 2/3 of them said that, they're evaluating the health of their business as good or excellent. So they seem to be moving along okay in this economy. Again, those job openings are still available for filling for many small business owners. They're competing with trying to attract and retain talent with compensation pressures still historically pretty high. And their number one concern for 19% of small business owners remains labor quality. So the employment situation is still a motivating factor for many small business owners.
Interesting. How are you finding that small business owners, Holly, are addressing that issue?
So the main tool that they have in trying to attract and retain employees is compensation. So compensation pressures are still significant for a lot of small business owners. They've eased up on investing in their business on capital spending plans as of late. Could be for a myriad of reasons, whether it's higher financing costs or what they're looking as far as, expectations on the economy going forward. But many of them, so they have more dollars to invest in their business, especially with employees. So there's still a high level of small business owners that are, increasing compensation for those who are working in their business, but also for those open positions and those entry-level positions that they are feeling the pressure to increase compensations to attract those to those high levels of open positions.
We've heard some comments recently, Holly, certainly in the wake of this report from the president, that the economy is in a period of transition, not necessarily ruling out a recession. I'm curious what you've gathered from some of these small business owners in terms of trade policy and how they are preparing for that.
Sure. So inflation is still one of the challenges for a lot of small business owners. Tariffs will likely kind of push on that a bit as far as, inflation continuing to be one of the major problems for some small businesses. There are a lot of moving parts. That is, part of the reason that we're likely seeing uncertainty escalate over the last few months. But because our survey was conducted in February, the next few months we'll have a better idea of how these moving parts in policy will impact them related to tariffs as those policies unfold.
Interesting. Stock market, obviously in focus. We heard from the president as well. Holly, what else were your takeaways from this latest survey?
So the biggest takeaway is that, they're not quite sure how to move forward in this economy. They're looking for Congress to pass and extend those tax cuts that have been so important for them so they don't experience a tax increase at the end of the year when a lot of those provisions from 2017 expire, and to see kind of how these new policies unravel related to tariffs or the Fed and interest rates, how they move forward, and how that will impact costs related to operating their business.
Holly Wade, always great to see you every month to walk through the takeaways from this particular report. Holly's the executive director at NFIB Research Center. Thanks again.